It's the middle of November, and I will go ahead and speak for all avid sports fans. We are absolutely living the dream right now, folks. So much is happening in the world of sports that it is must-watch TV right now. Almost every game in the NFL has a playoff-type atmosphere. The Warriors might hate each other, and the playoff picture in college football is starting to take shape. We will get to all that and more on today's show. Here to break down the NBA madness, I'm joined by Vaughan Jones and Jackson Nelson. So guys, let's get right into it.
All right.
I want to start by talking about some of the young players in the NBA. Vaughan, we'll start with you. Who's a guy or two that's a younger player in the NBA that you've really seen take the next step in this young season?
All right, so the Sacramento Kings have been really intriguing to watch. I watched maybe like 4 or 5 Kings games last year, and so far I've watched maybe 8 or 9. Like, they're really entertaining, and De'Aaron Fox is mostly the reason for that. Like, really, De'Aaron Fox is absolutely incredible this year. He's putting up. He had a 30-point triple-double. He's leading a team. He's actually like living up to that potential, and it makes teams that drafted guys ahead of him look kind of foolish. You know, like the Phoenix Suns and Josh Jackson, and then to his, you know, on his side, he's got Buddy Hield, who's becoming quickly becoming one of the best shooters in the NBA, and he's somebody that, like, you know, to quote Vlade Divac, he's big like Clay, but he shoots like Steph, and he's actually living up to that expectation right now. He's doing something that, you know, his shooting splits this year are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Kings have been fun to watch so far. Jackson, what do you think?
I mean, I really like Zach LaVine this year. I mean, he made a huge jump after coming off a couple injuries in Minnesota. Now he's really getting his foothold in Chicago. You know, he's averaging around 26 points a game this year. And, you know, maybe I'm being a little cavalier here, but I really do think Zach LaVine might be the next Kobe Bryant in the NBA. I mean, he's got the athleticism like Kobe did, you know, winning dunk contests earlier in this year, working off a couple injuries, but now he's really getting his, you know, he's really doing what he wants to do. He's scoring 20-plus points a game, and I think we'll be able to see that from Zach LaVine for the next 5-10 years.
It's interesting.
Yeah, he is really young, so his ceiling is definitely very high. All right, let's move on here to another very hot subject in the NBA right now. Jimmy Butler, making the move from the Wolves to the Sixers. That Wolves season just started in disaster with the whole shambles with Jimmy Butler and his teammates running with the third stringers. Now he is a 76er. Jackson, what does this mean for the NBA, and what does this mean for both teams involved?
Well, I mean, I can speak for at least Minnesota Timberwolves fans. I think it's a good thing that they're moving on from a guy like Jimmy Butler. I think they're kind of, you know, making their own decisions, especially like GM Scott Layden trying to maybe get the power away from Tom Thibodeau. And, you know, getting a guy like Rocco, a guy like Saric, and even a guy like Jared Bayless can help even just spread out the offense, especially because the Timberwolves have been a notoriously very poor three-point shooting team. You know, you're able to spread the floor with a guy like Bayless coming off the bench, and, of course, having a guy like Rocco who also brings the defense, like they were lost with Butler going out to Philly. You know, I think it's a very good trade for both sides, and, of course, the Sixers are getting a bona fide superstar in Jimmy Butler.
And you talked about this earlier. You said that Minnesota doesn't have any patience for guys that don't want to be there.
They certainly don't.
So you move Jimmy Butler quickly.
Yeah.
What do you think about it, Vaughn?
So I think from Philadelphia's perspective, obviously he's a superstar. But then you have lineups that you're running out with Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, and Jimmy Butler, and Joel Embiid, and Wilson Chandler, and that's not a shooting lineup.
No.
In a three-point centric NBA, that is not a lineup you want to throw
Well,
out.
that was a big criticism even with the Timberwolves, was that maybe Joel Embiid could be the best three-point shooter right now in that lineup for the Sixers.
Which is absolutely
with the
ridiculous.
Wolves, that's
Probably
Karl
is,
Towns, and you know, the guys in TNT did not like to see that. So
no,
you know, it's a whole new thing.
It's crazy that lineup is going to roll out and still potentially be successful. But Simmons is just this generational player, and so is Embiid. And I think there's something to that lineup. There's a lot of defensive ferocity there. Simmons, Embiid, and Butler is a scary defensive combo.
I just hope Butler can watch Markelle Fultz take those jump shots
and not have to. Yeah, that's the other thing. A lot of concern about Markelle Fultz's development with an overly critical Jimmy Butler.
Because at the end of the day, those are pretty similar teams, the Wolves and the Sixers. So let's see if Jimmy Butler can actually get along with these new young guys.
Yeah, I think a big thing for the Sixers is when you get rid of Saric and Covington, two key pieces to their process, if you will. Fultz really has to step up now. I mean, first overall pick, has not played like it at all. So if this is really going to work for the Sixers, and I applaud them for taking this risk, acquiring a superstar, I think it'll help, but Fultz has got to be that guy. All right, moving from the hardwood to the asphalt. After completing its $178 million renovation, ISM Raceway hosted the NASCAR semifinal this weekend, where the final 4 drivers would be decided. Here's Sam Brennan with more.
What an incredible way to start things here at opening weekend at the new ISM Raceway. The race was fantastic, but the fans had a great time too. For Coast to Coast Sports, I'm Sam Brennan. The Can-Am 500 was as dramatic of a race as you can get in NASCAR. Coming into the race, 7 drivers were battling for 3 spots remaining in the championship. Nearly all of those drivers looking to clinch faced some sort of challenges. After an exciting 312 laps, Kyle Busch came away with his 8th victory of the year and clinched his spot in the Final 4. That would leave only 2 spots. With less than 50 laps to go, Kurt Busch and Chase Elliott got into a wreck, ruining their chances at Homestead. Eric Almirola made a late race push, but it would eventually be Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick who would clinch the other 2 spots. The field is set and the champion will be determined next week at Homestead, Miami. Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Martin Truex Jr. will be the drivers looking to hoist that Monster Energy NASCAR Cup on Sunday. From ISM Raceway in Avondale, I'm Sam Brennan.
Switching gears, to talk all things NFL, I'm joined by Jacob Lev and Matt Stolbof. We'll start out on the West Coast, where 2 of the hottest teams in football collide in a spicy Monday night matchup. Chiefs and Rams. What are we looking for in this one, Jacob?
Well, this is going to be a battle of the quarterbacks. I feel like at the end of the day, both of these quarterbacks I think are close to the top of the game right now. Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs, Jared Goff with the Rams. Both of them are having really good seasons, but I think Mahomes is having a magical season right now. 31 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I don't think anyone really saw this coming, besides people on the Chiefs, of course, because they traded Alex Smith. But Jared Goff also is just doing well with his coach, Sean McVay. This is going to be, I think it comes down to who plays better when it comes to the quarterback battle.
So you mean whichever quarterback plays better will win the game?
Yeah.
Matt, what are your thoughts?
I think it's more on the defensive side right now. I think both these offenses are obviously really good. They're both top offenses in the league. Mahomes leading the NFL in touchdowns right now. Goff doing pretty well as well, and Gurley's one of the best running backs in the league, and so is Kareem Hunt. So both their offenses, I think, are pretty even. It's more the defense. And the big difference is the Chiefs' defense has given up the second most yards in the NFL this year. The Rams' defense has been pretty average right now. They've struggled a little bit in their last few games, giving up a total about like 80 points the last 2 games. But I think it's really going to decide on defense here. I think the Rams have the edge on that just because they've been more successful over the years. So I expect the Rams to pull this one out.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Stoll on this one. I believe that the defenses will be the key in this one. They've both been bad. The Rams honestly have been more close to bad than average this year defensively. Just gave up 30-plus to the Seahawks at home. They haven't been playing well. I know they've had some injuries. Talib has been out. But for all the names they have on paper, they went out and got Dante Fowler. They just haven't been getting it done. They can't be giving up that many points. That's a concern for me looking forward to the playoffs. But for right now, yeah, there's going to be a lot of points. Vegas, the over-under is set in the low 60s, which is an insane total. It's going to be an absolute shootout. And so I think it's going to come down to the end of the game, whichever defense can make a key stop.
Well, we also have to remember this game is home in LA now.
Right. That is
Originally
a big difference.
Now it's home in LA.
Yes.
And I even think just with everything going on in California that could be a little spark for the team.
Well, also, I did write down Dante Fowler as a player to watch because they just acquired him from Jacksonville. And last week, not really knowing much about the playbook, he had 4 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble last week against the Saints.
He's a good player.
He's a good player. I'm looking to see him take that next step that he never took with Jacksonville.
The Jags. I agree.
So,
yeah, and I know everyone's talking about Mahomes. Goff's had a great year, over 68% completion percentage, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. You touched on it. Him and McVay have just been clicking on all cylinders.
oh, yeah.
All right, moving forward, the Le'Veon Bell saga continued to drag on throughout the season. But finally, we have some clarity. Bell missed his deadline to report to the Steelers, in turn forfeiting his entire 2018 season. What does that mean for him, Matt?
I mean, it's, I'd kill for $14 million right now. It's a lot of money
you and me both.
he lost. I think it's just a statement that he thinks he deserves what Todd Gurley got earlier in the year.
Right.
That kind of money, probably more in his opinion. I think next year it means a new team. I think Pittsburgh, they see that, hey, we can be just as good and go cheap with James Conner. We don't need this guy anymore. We don't need to even tag him. So I think he's going to go. And I have 4 teams that realistically need a running back and have the cap space for it next year. So I got Indianapolis, Houston, the Jets, and Green Bay is my dark horse. I think Green Bay's got a good shot here. They'll have about like $45 million cap. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes there. Imagine Rodgers and Le'Veon Bell on the same team. Like that would be amazing. But
That's
the Jets,
nightmare,
Indianapolis, Houston, all guys have future quarterbacks, franchise quarterbacks for the teams. So any situation I think works out for him.
What do you think?
Also, James Conner has really been outproducing
Been outstanding.
Le'Veon so far. So I think this isn't as much of a loss for the Steelers as it is for just Le'Veon losing
I would agree.
that $14 million. But touching on what Stolbof said, I could really see him being a Jet next year. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Jets fan. I woke up this morning to a bunch of things on Twitter saying that it's a foregone conclusion that he'll be a Jet. The Jets have $106 million in cap space to spend this offseason.
I mean,
that's a lot of money.
Indianapolis has a lot too, and they have Andrew Luck right now, and their offense is looking good. Imagine if they had Le'Veon in that offense, spend more on the defense. That could be a dangerous team.
Marlon Mack has been very good this year too, though. To be fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if they'd want to.
I don't know if
because he's a cheap option for them right now. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think right now the Jets would be more realistic.
But also though, Houston could be an option too there with Deshaun Watson, because I don't think Lamar Miller's really the answer there and hasn't been. So.
I don't think so either. All right, turning from a quality running back to the signal callers of the football field. Out of the rookie quarterbacks right now, who has the greatest upside? Jacob, who do you got?
Who has the great? Well, right now it's going to be Baker. I think he was the most NFL-ready quarterback coming into it, and I think he's proven it. He's been
playing the best.
He's been playing the
number
best.
one overall pick.
Not great, but
out of the rookie batch, yeah.
So he's got almost 2,000 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Again, that's the best numbers out of all the rookie quarterbacks. Right now, I would take him, but yeah, for the long run, I would say Darnold.
Matt, what do you think?
So yeah, Baker's been the best this year. As Jacob just said, all the stats: 13 touchdowns, 7 picks, and he's been the winning quarterback of the four that have really played this year. Not much. There's been a lot of winning in general with the rookies, but he's got the most wins for Cleveland too. So it's like a huge holiday for them that they got 3 wins this year. But I think Rosen's going to be the future. I like his mechanics. I think his attitude, his mindset, I think is the most mature, most prepared out of all the rookie QBs. If the Cardinals play their cards right, spend on the right players, get good free agents, draft well, I think Rosen will be the best out of the rookie draft class.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I actually have Roses written down as well. I think one of the biggest factors as to how successful a quarterback was or how much they mask up, you look at UCLA right now. I know they had a lot of turnover with the coaching staff, obviously, but UCLA's in shambles. And with Rosen last year, even when he was banged up, like they were relevant. You know, it's not like they were a great team by any means, but he made them go. And I think without him, the Cardinals, say if the Cardinals stuck with Bradford right now, I don't think they'd have a single win. So I think Rosen, to me, has the highest upside. Very accurate with the football, great footwork, throws a nice pass. Stolbof touched on it, though. They need help. Well, he needs help. O-line is horrible.
Terrible situation.
Receivers are horrible. Really doesn't have a lot going for it. The only good thing is David Johnson, but they need an entire new coaching staff, I think, as well.
I think the same could be said about Sam Darnold, too. He has no one around him. His number one wide receiver is like a number 2 or 3 on a better team. Yeah. He's got no O-line, and it's struggling. I mean, Spencer Long's their center. Against Miami a couple weeks ago, Sam Darnold had 4 interceptions. I don't think Long had a good snap in the second half.
Yeah,
so
that's tough.
Look, I love Rosen. I think Rosen is going to be a great quarterback in this league. Mm-hmm. But also, you mentioned UCLA is in shambles now. USC is also in shambles too. Once Darnold left too.
Very true.
So
yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we have to remember all these rookies were drafted high by bad teams. So you know, it's going to be a work in progress,
process,
and
definitely.
you know, can't expect too much. You know.
Yeah. All right, let's transition to the ice now. We're joined in by Nick Frias to give us a hockey update.
Thanks, Nate. The NHL season is close to a quarter of the way through, and a lot has happened. The Tampa Bay Lightning and Nashville Predators lead their respective conferences and are tied atop the league standings with 27 points in 19 games. Thursday night, Lightning forward Braden Point managed to pull off a tough feat, the natural hat trick. Point scored his 3 consecutive goals in a 91-second span of time, all of them coming on the power play. On the other side of the standings, last year's Cinderella story, the Vegas Golden Knights, are second to last in the Pacific Division, and the team behind them is the LA Kings, the worst team in hockey right now. The St. Louis Blues find themselves at the bottom of the Central Division standings after losing to the rival Blackhawks for new Chicago head coach Jeremy Colleton's first win on the job. Earlier this week in a game, Boston Bruins 6'9", 41-year-old defenseman Zdeno Chara left the game after an ugly knee injury, and if he heads to the IR, the Slovak's career very well could be over. Back to you, Nate.
From the pros to college students, let's take a look at how the college football playoff picture is shaping up. I'm joined alongside by Jackson Nelson and James Johnston. We'll start with the backside of the playoff picture. Guys, who is currently the most vulnerable team right now at the back end of the playoff? Jackson, we'll start with you.
I mean, I got to start with Michigan just because they're the only one-loss team in the top 4. I mean, of course, they still have their game with Ohio State coming up this year. Yeah, I really think it's going to be tough for them because, a team like, Notre Dame's, they got Syracuse coming up, and that's going to be a big game. But even with one loss, I still think it's easy to keep Notre Dame in the top 4. And Bama's got the Citadel coming up, and Clemson is looking red hot right now. So I think Michigan's definitely most vulnerable.
Wait, just really quick, you think if Notre Dame loses this week that they would still be in?
Depending on how the other games shape out, Oklahoma could lose, Michigan could still lose, a lot of teams could lose out. So Notre Dame's especially in the best shot since the number 3 seed right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. James, what do you think?
For me, the most vulnerable team is Notre Dame. Right now, we still don't even know how the committee is going to handle a one-loss independent team that isn't in a conference. I mean, they still have a couple tough games left to play. They have number 12 Syracuse this week, and then they go on the road at USC, and USC is always hard to beat at the Coliseum. So if they lose one of those, I mean, we really don't know. I mean, a one-loss independent, we don't know whether they'd get in or not.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that both those teams are vulnerable. I think if I had to choose between those two, I'd go Michigan right now, just because of their recent history struggling with Ohio State the past few years. And what gets really interesting is if Ohio State beats them, and then somebody like a Georgia and Oklahoma loses, Ohio State could maybe leap all the way up and sneak into 4. Yeah, that would be wild if that happens. All right, now let's talk about, we touched on it a little bit just now, but Alabama plays Citadel this week, and Georgia plays UMass. James, what do you think about these cupcake games, if you will, at this point in the season?
I really don't like it. I think that this needs to be taken into account by the committee. I mean, the SEC already plays one less conference game, and when you're throwing that non-conference game and it's an absolute cupcake into the latter half of the season, I mean, what that's doing is it's giving SEC teams who are contending for a national title, it's giving them a break, before the most important games of the year. And, I mean, they're getting a clear advantage. I mean, some teams from other conferences, they're obviously not in it anymore, but if, you took a team like Washington, and if they were still in it, they don't have a choice but to play a team like Oregon State, late in their schedule. And, I mean, the thing is, the SEC teams, they can control that. And they're choosing to, Alabama's choosing to play the Citadel this week. And I'm just not a fan of it, and I think it needs to be taken into account when they're in that committee room.
Yeah. What do you think, Jackson?
Well, I think especially with being this late in the year, playing a team like the Citadel, it's essentially another bye week for Alabama when they head into the Iron Bowl and the SEC championship game. It's really easy for them to just take a week off, throw in some of their subs in the second quarter. I mean, it's interesting how this is kind of allowed when the SEC is supposed to be the premier conference in college football, yet they still have a lackluster schedule, especially this late in the season.
Yeah, I agree. It is a bit ironic. I think we can all three agree that it's not the best look for the SEC. I'm not really sure why they're allowed to do that, quite honestly, because teams like Alabama, teams like Georgia historically have scheduled really weak non-conference openers to begin the season, and so I just don't think you should be allowed to do that again. Now, I don't know what kind of rule that would look like, but I think something should be implemented where, I don't know, they have the power index of how good a team is based on the computer. Yeah, so I mean, when you're playing someone like the Citadel, Bama's 50-point favorites this week. I mean, Tua will be sitting after midway through the second quarter. So, yeah, it's a little ridiculous. All right, final topic we'll touch on here. A lot of individual great players in college football, obviously, with the Heisman race and all that. But I want to touch on some players that are maybe forgotten about or a little underrated. Jackson, we'll start with you. Who's flying under the radar right now in college
I think
football?
This guy's flown under the radar since he stepped into Florida Atlantic's campus is Devin Singletary. The running back, for the Lane Train. He led college football last year in rushing touchdowns with 32, and he's currently leading the NCAA in rushing touchdowns this year with 20. Wow. He's on pace right now to break Keenan Reynolds' all-time rushing touchdown record, and I think he really gets noticed because he's playing for Florida Atlantic. He's a really talented running back, and he's had multiple 5-touchdown games, and you don't really see that anywhere else.
Yeah, that's a good pick for sure. James, what do you think?
The guy I'm going with is the guy that I think is the greatest thing to happen to Pullman, Washington in a few years, and I think it's Gardner Minshew, the quarterback at Washington State. Currently, he's the nation's leader in passing yards, and he's surprised a lot of people. He's taken a team that was supposed to be a rebuilding program, and he's put them right into contention for the college football playoff. He's taken quite the journey. He went from Northwest Mississippi Community College to East Carolina, and now he's in Pullman at Washington State. And I think he's finally starting to get put into the spotlight a little bit, but he's been the main reason that Washington State has been as good as they have been this year.
Yeah, he's got quite an interesting story, and I agree. He's been magnificent this year. For me, I'm going with a guy who's, if you follow college football remotely closely, you're going to know the name Josh Allen out of Kentucky. 6'5" linebacker, 260 pounds, the senior. He's got 65 total tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss, and 11 total sacks, which leads the nation. I mean, this guy has been, or sorry, not leads the nation, second in the nation. Either way, incredible numbers for a guy out of Kentucky where, you know, you look at Kentucky as a basketball school, and this year, partly because of him, they've been relevant in football. They have a solid team this year. They've been ranked for most of the year. And I think he's going to go in the top 20, and a team who needs an edge rusher, a linebacker type, is going to get a great player in Josh Allen. That'll do it for us for this week for Coast to Coast Sports. We appreciate your viewership. As always, I'm Nate Smith. Enjoy your weekend.